What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of the Turbo Omaha podcast. My name is Shawn, joined by one of my best friends on this planet, Alex, and today we're going to be talking about 2024. We're going to be looking at the NFL honors, what we agree with, what we disagree with. We're going to be looking at some of the best and worst plays of 2024, some of the biggest surprises we had this year, and some of the biggest disappointments we had, and as well as the best and worst game of the year. So excited to get into that with y'all and talk about 2024 and really do a little bit of reflection as we, ended the season, 3 weeks ago now since the Super Bowl, I want to say.
Yep.
So, we're going to do a little retrospective and just talk about last season. So looking forward to it. But Alex, a lot has happened since last week's episode. So one of the topics that's crossed my mind is last episode, we talked a lot about trades and signings, and well, in the span of that last week, the salary cap increase. So what do you think about that, Alex? Does that change anything in your mind about anything we talked about, or?
I think the only thing it changes for me... Actually, no, scratch that. It doesn't change anything. Spend some fucking money. Spend money. Especially the Cincinnati front office, just spend some fucking money. You're now getting more than you already had. I want to say we had like a 33 mil still in cap left. And if we are getting an additional 20 to 25 on top of that, spend some fucking money, guys.
Y'all did? You signed your punter.
Yeah, we also re-signed our long snapper, which
yeah.
I won't talk too much shit about that because what was that, week 1 of last year when our long snapper got hurt and we had to throw in like one of our backup tight ends to long snap for us, and he just could not do it to save his fucking life. It was that game where I realized how important the long snapper is. So re-signing Adamitis is one that I'm like, okay, that's a sensible one. That's a cheap one. Makes sense. Keep him around, but spend some fucking money. That's where it's not changing. Now that we have more of it, just spend more. It seems pretty fucking easy to me.
Well, I messaged you when I saw that punter news because I think in the same day the news came out that T. Higgins is probably going to get franchise tagged. So it's, that of course, he's probably the number one free agent for a lot of teams right now. So if that's the case, then that's going to scrap a lot of hope that some teams have. But, this is the second straight year they've increased the salary cap. And you made a good point last podcast or last episode about the New Orleans Saints, and they probably can't bring a lot of big names in, but they're still signing people. So I don't know the whole rules or guardrails or whatever there is about the salary cap, but it is, it's gone up. Broncos have been pretty quiet so far this this off season, which is traditional. They don't really do too much over the first several weeks, and then it just comes out like crazy. So not a big surprise. The NFL is rich. They're getting so much money, so much. So it's good to see them paying that to the teams to start bringing some more talent around. So
yeah. I can't say I'm super well versed in the cap, so it's something I can't speak too much on. But knowing how much money we still have and getting added on top of that, if we don't start spending some money, I just don't know what else.
Yeah.
I don't know what else we can fucking do. You guys got that Wally World money, so it's not like you have to worry about that.
Yeah, hopefully they don't bring the great value to any of our decisions, which they haven't so far. I've made a lot of jokes. I don't shop at Walmart because of some personal vendetta I have about how they treated me about a Nintendo Switch when I was trying to shop for one of those. That's the last time I walked into Walmart when the Nintendo Switch released. So that 10 plus years, I'm proud of that. And I won't walk into another Walmart. But so far, knock on wood, our owners have done some good. So hopefully we spend some money. But on the heels of money, there was some also interesting news that Matt Stafford's been given the green light to talk to teams about a trade. I didn't see this necessarily coming. I'm not sure what they do without Matt Stafford, but do you have any idea or any hope where you'd like to see Stafford land, or if he does go anywhere?
I think it's kind of back to what we were talking about last episode, just QB needy teams. Now, granted, the more research I've done, pretty much all these QB needy teams have top 10 draft picks. And when you've got Shador, when you've got Cam Ward, when you've got Jackson Dart as potential landing options for a lot of these QB needy teams, I don't know how many are going to pursue a vet, but I think doing it kind of the Packers way, it's shown to be successful. You get yourself a good kid who you know is going to be sharp. You give him 2 or 3 years under the vet, and then you let him take the reins. It's proved to be very successful in Green Bay over the last 30 fucking years. So I think if Stafford goes somewhere like the Giants, and the Giants pick up Ward or Dart or Sanders or whoever, if that's the direction they decide to go, you give them a year or two under Stafford, who has arguably been one of the best leaders and best quarterbacks in the NFL during his time period in the NFL. I think that's going to set up some young kid for success. So I think best case scenario, Stafford plans to go somewhere where he can mentor someone else. He's definitely on the back foot of his career at this point. He's been around for a long time. He's been great for a long time. Got a Super Bowl out of it. So I think at this point, you take what you've got, you transfer it to some young kid, and you watch your legacy continue to go.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw this. I mean, you point out a lot of the needy teams are either at the top of the draft, or there's some decent young QBs out there that, Jameis Winston, potentially Derek Carr. Are you really going to trade capital for somebody like Matt Stafford, who is at the end of his career, who has quite the injury list? He's a great quarterback. I don't know. Maybe you get a third or a fourth. I'm not sure what the Rams would hope to get. They're certainly not going to get a first or second. I don't think that's possible. So we'll see.
I mean,
personally,
there's always the option too that maybe he decides to retire. Maybe he calls it quits right now.
That's where I was going to go. Is personally, I think he either stays because he doesn't get that trade interest, or he doesn't get that trade interest and decides to call it a career and end in LA. He won a Super Bowl there. He kind of goes out as a hero. They still love him in Detroit. Yeah, I don't see a big draw for Matt Stafford at this point.
I mean, he's a proven winner. Obviously, he's got a Super Bowl. He turned Detroit into playoff contenders in his tenure there. Yeah. Granted, he had Megatron to help him, but I mean, 2 players on offense can't lift an entire team. You got to have some pieces around you. So I think he's a proven winner. I think if a team is needy enough and wants to, like I said, put him in that mentor role, I think that would be a good position for him to be in. But if, like you said, there's just no interest in him elsewhere, I think just hang it up, call it a career. You've done great things and move on,
Yeah.
Which,
speaking about moving on,
I was going to say, speaking of retirement, Zach Martin of the Cowboys has decided to call it quits, which is a big blow to the Cowboys. He's been a huge piece for a long time for them. So seeing him walk is going to be tough. But there's a list of players who are kind of teetering on that. Should they retire? Should they look to resign somewhere else? And I kind of want to run through that with you and see what you think. To top the list, Odell Beckham Jr.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
He's coming off. Didn't he have another knee injury? I feel like.
I want to say maybe it was like an MCL sprain or something like that. It wasn't a full-on tear or anything like that, but it was something like that.
The NFL is getting too fast. Odell is slowing down, but before we go too far, I just want to call out Zach Martin. More all-pros than holding penalties.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, he'll probably be a first ballot, is my guess. When you get an 100%. Offensive lineman that is that stout, I mean, it's almost always like first ballot Hall of Famer. It's you don't see players like that every day. So that's a crazy stat. I didn't know that.
Kat was pretty upset. I screenshot it, sent it to her. She was expecting it. Yeah. But, I mean, when you get a player like that that loses. But I want to make sure that was out there. So.
He's only 34, but I want to say, didn't he suffer a pretty serious neck injury last year or 2 years ago or something like that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago,
yeah. It was 2 years ago.
So the fact that he even came back to play one more season is pretty impressive as it is.
A lot of guys like that. I mean, of course, being a big Broncos fan, there's a lot of our old linemen talk about, you continue to play until your late 30s. How much life do you have left because of the injuries? Because of more than any player on the field, you are constantly in someone's face.
Yeah.
So go out on top. Go out on top.
I think that's a fair call. I think, that's again, kind of like we were talking about with Stafford. He did his job. He came in. He was an absolute game changer. hang your
Yeah.
hat on that, move on.
Yeah.
Next, Calais Campbell, 38.
See ya.
Yeah.
Again, the speed of the NFL right now. You go out on top. Go out on your own terms. Don't go out on an injury. Don't go out because people don't want you. Don't go out because you get second, third string practice. I mean, he'd never go on the practice squad, but
Yeah.
he could. I mean, Jerry Rice was on the practice squad for the Broncos before he retired.
Yep.
So, yeah, he's got to retire.
Yeah, agreed on that, especially with the position he plays. It's so physically demanding, and,
Yeah.
it's crazy when you look at the age 38 and you go, oh, that's ancient. But in the NFL, it really is, especially for someone like him who's been around for 13, 14 years. You're just getting your ass kicked 5 months a year nonstop
Mm-hmm.
on top of the training that you do in the off season. And yeah, I think I'm with you on this one. Call it quits. Call it quits, and have yourself a career.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Aaron Rodgers.
So he was my number 2 last week when we talked about top targets. I personally think he should retire.
That's just because you don't want him to go to Vegas.
I don't want him to go. Well, I mean, I don't think he's going to have an impact. And I don't think he'd go to Vegas because if he goes anywhere, he's looking to win now. Vikings. It's the meme, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers will retire because of his ego, but I think he should. And he's tarnished any sort of comparison to Tom Brady or Peyton Manning with the way they were able to go to the Denver and Tampa and win a Super Bowl. Most likely he's not going to do that. And even if he does, I think people are still going to look at that stint in New York and kind of turn their nose up like, yeah, you really did that.
But I mean, again, like you said, it's the exact same thing Brett Favre did, and he sucked it up real bad in New York, and he was only there for, I think, 1 year, and then unretired, went to the Vikings. But people don't really look back at it like, oh yeah, that was, oof, Brett Favre's legacy was tarnished because of that time with the Jets. No, they always think about his time with the Packers, and then they think about how he almost did it with the Vikings. So
that nasty interception.
Yep, tough. I think
that's
Aaron Rodgers should stay around. I think, assuming he stays healthy, he's got 2 or 3 more years left in him. I think, like what you said, because of his ego, he's not going to be the kind of guy that, is a morale booster and is trying to help these young kids come up and through the league and, give them all these bits of wisdom. He's not going to be like that. He's not like that you guy. Said, he's in win now mode. And if there's a team that has the right pieces around him that can be in win now mode, I think he's got 2 or 3 years left in him before he should hang it up. So,
yeah.
Next on the list, one we talked about a lot last episode, Von Miller, 35.
Oh, come back to Denver. You shouldn't have even asked that one. Look at him. Look at him. What a rush. Come back, open arms.
I'm in agreement with you. I will do it the other way around. He should retire, but he should do like the 1-day contract or whatever. So that way he can officially retire as a Denver Bronco. He's coming off some pretty rough injuries. He's coming off of some pretty low performance years. He's coming off of only playing 25% of the Bills' defensive snaps this season. Granted, he still sort of shows flashes like that big fumble recovery he had. But yeah, I think at this point, sign your 1-day deal with the Broncos, retire as a Bronco, and you'll be a king forever. So.
Give us a veteran minimum contract, come in at a discount, play for a year, maybe 2, and still be on the Broncos Mount Rushmore.
Oh, all right. Next on the list. I'm salty about Von Miller because he's just the fucking GOAT, and we've never had a piece like that. So I'm salty when you just see someone like that just be the GOAT wherever he goes. It's salty.
I understand.
Next on the list, Stephon Gilmore, 34.
I think he still has some time.
I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm with you.
Who else? I don't even know of any huge name outside of maybe Kadarius Ward. Secondary players that are really available, and at an age like that, you think he wouldn't demand a high contract, can come and be a second, third, option on the defensive secondary and make an impact.
Yeah. It's Stephon Gilmore is a lot like Von Bell for the Bengals. He's not playing every defensive snap, and when he is, he kind of gets torched sometimes. I won't lie, but he's a huge locker room presence. He's huge with the youngsters in the secondary, teaching them everything he knows because he was a pretty locked down second in the secondary for a long time. So he's big into helping these young kids develop their skills. He's a big morale boost. I think Stephon Gilmore could be something like that too, wherever he chooses to go. I think, you know, NFL is full of egos, and I can't say I know too terribly much about him to know whether or not he has a big ego. He seems like a pretty down-to-earth guy. So assuming you're willing to play that role, collect another couple mil, call it good.
Yeah, agreed.
Last one for you. Kirk Cousins. Sounds like the Falcons are done with him. They made that pretty clear. I don't know if any other teams are going to want to take that contract on that the Falcons, for whatever reason, signed him to, but
it's not a Russell Wilson situation where Denver got rid of him. He went on, signed a small deal. I don't think people, I'm assuming, you know, the general managers in the NFL looking at what happened with Russ, looking at the season that the Steelers had, looking at the situation that Atlanta gave to Kirk Cousins and the swap in, the swap out. I'm leaning towards retire, or they can't get rid of his contract and maybe they just keep him on because Kirk has been mentoring. I can't think of his name. Their new quarterback.
Michael Penix Jr.
Michael Penix Jr.
Yep.
So I think he probably stays. It either stays in Atlanta, rides the bench as a mentor, or he retires.
I mean, at this point, call it quits.
Yeah.
I want to say he is like the fourth or fifth highest paid quarterback in NFL history. For being the most mediocre dude, call it. You've got generational wealth for you and your fucking great grandkids.
I think if he retires, though, he doesn't get the contract.
He may not get the full contract, but I mean, I saw this stat, 2 or 3 years ago. So I mean, he's still just adding more to that. So I mean, at this point, just call it.
Why not just ride the bench, get a front row seat to some NFL games? Still get to be around what you love and get the max money that you were promised.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It's tough because you see someone like Kirk Cousins too, who is generally a likable guy. He may not be the best at what he does, but he generally seems like someone I would want to root for. It's tough to see them get older, slow down, break down, especially when you're coming off of an Achilles injury. Granted, you know, Aaron Rodgers was 40 when it happened to him and Kirk was 35. That's still pretty old to be having something like your fucking Achilles rupture. So, you know, and the older you get, the more injuries like that you suffer, the more likely they are to happen again. I would hate to see him go down with another Achilles injury. Well, yes,
goes back to what we talked about with Zach Martin, right? I mean, he's leaving on being able to still live a normal life. 2 blown Achilles.
You're never the same
when it's cold.
Yeah, you're never the same. So, I think he calls it. I think he's had a pretty mediocre career, but he's had his moments. He's been a meme in the NFL. He's been the hero in the NFL. He was the hero in Minnesota and Atlanta and even in Washington. He's always had his moments whatever team he goes to. I think you hang your hat on that and you call it good.
Yeah.
Well, from the old to the new.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the 2024 NFL honors. I want to start.
Can we start with one? I have a request on where we're going to start because I don't know if you're going to cover it, but I have to talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2025.
I did.
Was that on your list?
It wasn't, but I contemplated it.
I'm going to take 2 minutes to complain about Mike fucking Shanahan getting nixed again as a coach eligible for the NFL Hall of Fame. There have been 6 times in the NFL a team has won back-to-back, one of which being Mike fucking Shanahan. And you still decide, nah, we're not going to go with Mike Shanahan. We're going to go Mike Holmgren, who, by the way, Mike Shanahan beat in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Yeah.
Mike Shanahan beat him in the Super Bowl, the biggest game in the NFL. You're going to take that guy over Mike Shanahan. Oh,
Ho-
let's also point out Mike Shanahan's son is the head coach of the 49ers.
a
Now,
damn
of
good one
course,
too.
a damn good one. Now, how much is he influencing? Well, he's there every week with the game in the press boxes. How much of his schemes are still live in the NFL? Who fucking talks about Mike Holmgren?
Packers fans still trying to live in the moment.
Losers, Alex. Fucking losers.
I will weigh in on the Hall of Fame very quickly just to say I think there have not been two more deserving people to get in than Antonio Gates and Sterling Sharp.
Did you watch the Sterling
Oh,
Sharp,
dude,
Shannon Sharp?
that was incredible. That was an incredible moment. Even
Mhm.
in Shannon Sharp, when he got inducted, however many years ago that was, he said, "I'm standing up here being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I'm still the second best player in my family," in reference to Sterling, obviously. So getting to be the one to give him the jacket, to give him the speech, to give him the honors, that was an incredibly cool moment. I think Sterling Sharp definitely deserves it. And Antonio Gates, there's a meme that always circulates around that's like, when you were a kid just kind of starting to get into football, there's names that always like stick out to you, and whether or not they were hugely popular or productive, they're just someone that always like is close to your heart. For me, it's always going to be Mohamed Sanu. I loved watching him play when I was younger. But Antonio Gates is up there too. Granted, that dude was a production machine. Antonio Gates is an incredible tight end. He was always so much fun to watch. Couldn't think of someone more deserving to be him. So that's
I
my
agree.
take on it.
And it wasn't Mike Holmgren that went in, but I know he was picked over Mike Shanahan. Ah, yeah. As soon as I saw it, I couldn't even tell you what coach actually got in because I don't give a fuck.
You were
I'm
just so
very
heated.
salty.
You were
It's
heated.
been
It wasn't
three.
Shanahan.
I think it's been 3 seasons now. He's been passed.
Isn't
It's a
there
crime.
a limit on it as to how many seasons, or is it like a percentage of votes? I know that's how baseball does it. Like if you don't get a certain percentage of votes, then you fall off and you can't get back on.
Either way, whoever's in that voting council, get your head out of your ass. Get your head out of your ass.
Well, speaking
But
of voting
okay,
council,
I figured you were on the fence probably about that. For viewers at home, we don't really tell each other what our topics are, how we're gonna go through it to keep it pretty organic. So
yeah,
I had that in the chamber, and I needed to make sure that got out today.
you know,
Ridiculous.
I understand. I understand. I can't say we've ever had a prolific head coach, or one even close to as good as Mike Shanahan. Marvin Lewis will always be close in my heart, but he's not going to be a Hall of Famer.
He'll get in the hall before Mike Shanahan.
I
Don't worry
don't
about
think
it.
so. I don't think so.
Don't worry about it.
You know, led the Bengals to however many playoff appearances and couldn't win a single one of them. He's not going to the Hall of Fame, but I understand the strife. You know, I get it. My
Yeah.
parents are huge Broncos fans. You've been around them. The Mike Shanahan
Oh, yeah.
era was the era for them, so I understand. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, jumping into some NFL honors. Let's start with Defensive Rookie of the Year.
No quorums.
No,
No quorums.
You liked it?
I liked it. I had no quorums.
I think the defensive rookie class this year was insane. There was a lot of really good players on there. I think it was kind of a coin toss for a lot of people. However, I think had one, the voting happened after the Super Bowl, probably would have gone to Cooper DeJean for his huge moment. I think the Rams had two of them on the, actually so did the Eagles, come to think of it. But Jared Verse, who did win, 4.5 sacks, no INTs, 2 forced fumbles, 2 recoveries, and a 57-yard fumble recovery in the playoffs. Pretty good. But on the D line for the Rams, Braden Fisk, 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 recoveries, and tack on another 1.5 sacks in the playoffs. Those numbers stand out more to me than Jared Verse. Granted, very different positions, defensive line versus linebacker. But if I was just looking at those two next to each other, I'd have taken Fisk. So I think, like I said, it was a toss-up this year for any of the candidates. Quinyon Mitchell of the Eagles. No eye-popping stats, no interceptions or anything like that. But 12 pass defends, which was tied for 18th in the NFL. Pretty good for a rookie. And it got to a point where towards the end of the season, veteran quarterbacks were avoiding his side of the field. So, I mean, you don't get to be, you know, you don't see rookies come in and be that locked down that fast where even, people that have been in the league for 10 years go, no, avoid that side of the field. So,
Yeah.
there was a very, very strong defensive class. I think if I would put a stamp on who I think the winner should have been, I would say Braden Fisk. But like I said, it was a stacked class of defensive rookies this year. So
it wasn't close for Quentin Mitchell either. Well, um, he got 37 first place votes. Quentin Mitchell got 9.
Verse got 37.
Yeah.
Man.
Second, so it's based on points. So like first gets a certain amount of points, second. So when you look overall, Jared got 427. Quinion Mitchell got 239. So it wasn't really close. And Brandon Fisk 96, Cooper DeJean 91, Chomp Robinson. He was pretty good this year too at 75. I have no quorums. I think it could have been a coin. Nobody was like, damn, that one individual was wild. It was all pretty close. So that's where I was like, nah.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't say I watch every snap of Rams football, so maybe there's plays I'm missing. Maybe he's just a captain out on the field. Maybe he's out there calling defensive audibles because he sees schemes faster than anyone else. Maybe that's some of the stuff I'm missing,
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is based off of stats. I'm a total fucking stat nerd, so seeing stats like that.
God bless those poor people that have to watch every Rams game. Jeez.
Yeah, a personal vendetta against them, so...
I know. I did that for you.
So from one side of the football to the other, offensive rookie of the year, I think it was pretty much no question Jaden Daniels deserved it. I know where you're going to stand, and I think
you sure do.
I think Bo Nix had a far better season than anyone was expecting, but Jaden Daniels comes in to a franchise that's been in a downward spiral for decades and takes them to a 12-win season and a trip to the NFC Championship game. I mean, on top of stats-wise, pretty good. 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns. Through the air, another 6 on the ground, 9 interceptions, and a passer rating just over 100. Pretty damn good to be fresh in the league, seeing these grown-ass men play their full-force defenses for the first time ever and carve them up like that. I know. I watched him fucking do it to us. So I'm with you, like where you were on defense. I think that was the right call. I think that was a pretty damn good season. Quarterbacks are always going to be easier to win an award like that, but you can't gloss over some of the other guys. Like, I think the name that is going to be one of the biggest names in the NFL once his career is done is Brock Bowers. That kid had an insane season, 112 receptions, which was third in the NFL, 1,194 yards, 5 touchdowns, and averaged 10.7 a reception. For a rookie tight end in Vegas, where they just have a carousel at quarterback between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, so no consistency from a ball thrower, one of the worst offenses in the league, and he's putting up numbers like that. I hope he doesn't waste his prime in Vegas, and I hope he goes somewhere where a quarterback can actually utilize him, but I think this kid's going to be huge. He's going to be special.
We're both going to have our opportunities to really show some passion in these votes. This is my turn. Okay, buckle in. I don't disagree with giving it to Jaden Daniels for the sole purpose of it's a shiny toy in the sense of the Hail Mary, the better overall team record. But let's more completions, Bo Nix. More passing attempts, Bo Nix. Passing percentage, about a little over 2% in terms of Jaden Daniels. More yards, Bo Nix by 200. More touchdowns, Bo Nix by 4. Less sacks to Bo Nix at 24 to Jaden Daniels 47. The interceptions 9 to 12 in the sense of Bo Nix threw more interceptions. Let's also add in Bo Nix didn't throw a touchdown pass until week 4.
How many touchdowns did Bo Nix have on the ground?
When we look at rushing, 6 to 4.
Okay.
In the sense of Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. I didn't
I'm not
think
going to have much bias in our podcast, but the Raiders have no one else to throw the ball to.
that's true. But I mean, even if you have no one else to throw the ball to, that doesn't mean you're going to be some star, because defenses pick up on that quick. They go, oh, they've got no one else but Brock Bowers, double him up, or fucking keep a man on him all game, and you kind of lock him down. So, especially at
Nobody
tight
takes
end,
the
tight
Raiders
ends,
serious.
yeah.
They had a shit season. They were down by 50 points every fucking game. So yeah, let's throw it to Brock Bowers so he gets a couple more yards. Denver shut him down both times. We got pick 6 off his lame ass. Here's where my problem is. I don't disagree with giving it to Jaden Daniels. Sure, he had a better record. He has more shininess with the broadcasted game of his Hail Mary. Bo Nix did it too against your Bengals.
That wasn't
Let's
a
just
hail.
point
That
that
wasn't quite a
it
Hail
wasn't a Hail
Mary.
Mary, but the last play of the game, throw it to Marvin Mims.
But
Okay,
so now here's the difference. How did that game end?
true. Again, it's the shininess of the Redskins had Redskins. I'm never gonna break that habit.
I
Had
still
one
call them
more
Oakland,
win. Had one more win. Whatever. My problem is when we look at the voting. Jaden Daniels had 49 first place votes, all but one, and then Brock Bowers' lame, boring, bald headed ass got one.
Dude,
Bo
it's
Nix didn't get a single one. Bo Nix wasn't even second. He still gets hate when you look at these idiot people that rank all the quarterbacks in the NFL, and Bo Nix is bottom of the barrel. Bottom half, not bottom of the barrel. So that's my only problem. We're going to continue in Denver in Bo leaving. Okay. And we'll be back. That's my only quorum.
Would you rather be Bo leaving, or would you rather be letting him cook?
Our food was burnt. Okay. The pots were we talk about, the decades of failure that Washington had. That's true. Bo Nix walked in with dirty dishes in the sink, burnt dog dew on the bottom of the frying pans, and the most dead cap space in the NFL. And I think it's close to the most in history with what we gave up with Russ until Cleveland might get rid of Deshaun Watson, or what you were talking about with Kirk Cousins, and maybe they release him. We made a mistake. We didn't have anything. That's all I gotta say. And Bo Nix didn't have a Terry McLaurin. He didn't have Bo Nix didn't have a run game he could rely on. We had, I think, the 26th worst run game in the league. I don't disagree. I want to make that clear for those of you who are listening at this point. I don't disagree. Give it to Jaden Daniels, but it should have been close. It should have been closer than what it was. And Bo Nix at third is just disrespectful.
So I will agree with you that Bo Nix should have been a little bit closer. I think what probably stunted that was looking at the season as a whole. Jaden Daniels had a phenomenal season through and through. Bo Nix didn't really turn it on until about week 6. But I mean, that goes to show that he had more growth and less time, I think. But I think Bo is going to be a key piece to you guys continuing to win. I think give it another 3 or 4 years, and he's going to be one of those offensive player of the years, maybe in the MVP
Go ahead,
talks.
say it.
Maybe.
I feel you might be Bo leaving a little bit.
No, I do not. I do not believe. I do want to throw out one more sort of honorable mention. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver for the Jaguars. Jaguars did not have a lot to celebrate this year. It was a rough year down in Duval. But this kid, 87 receptions, 1,282 yards, third in the NFL, 10 touchdowns, averaged 14.7 a catch. That's pretty wild for rookie numbers. If Trevor Lawrence can kind of bounce back into 2022 form, and he's got this kid as his number one weapon, I don't think they're going to be, pursuing any Super Bowls anytime soon, but they can hopefully put themselves back into sort of playoff contention where they were 2 years ago. So I just wanted to throw him out there because that's a pretty damn good season. So.
Sounds like he had a better season than Brock Bowers. That's all I gotta say. I don't like the Raiders. If you're a Raiders fan, listen to this. I'm sorry.
You know what? There's a difference in tight end and wide receiver.
Amen.
Back to the other side of the ball. Defensive player of the year. I already know you are super happy about it. I think if anyone could have given him a run for his money, it was Trey Hendrickson. Funny. It's funny how we're trying to be so not biased during these podcasts, but then when we look at the numbers, it's hard to not be biased. I think Trey Hendrickson could have, maybe kept it a little bit closer than it was. But I think PS2 100% deserved it. Absolutely shut down lockdown year. The guy that won the Triple Crown locked him up all game long. PS2 absolutely deserved it. Like I said, a little bit of stank from me because Trey Hendrickson. I mean, when you play on a defense as shitty as the Bengals and you lead the NFL in sacks with 17, you know how hard you got to work as one man to put up numbers like that? So I won't.
It was close.
I won't.
I was 330 to 205. It was close.
Closer. But I think at the end of the day, yeah, absolutely PS2 deserved it. Absolutely shut down lockdown year from him.
Yeah. I'm not going to belabor this one because y'all know where I'm going to stand on it. But all I'm going to point out is if you're better off throwing the ball in the dirt than throwing it at my guy, give him his flowers.
Yep.
That's all I got to say.
Deserved.
All I got to say. But one thing I just do want to call out, happy TJ Watt was fourth. Everybody, it's the shiny toy out there, right? He's a big name, and I know you don't, but I love the Watt family. I think JJ and TJ are awesome. They do a lot of cool things. Love the commercials. But he sucked this year. Let's call it what it is. And I don't even think he should have been even on the list. But glad to see my boy. He deserved it.
JJ,
deserved it.
The Watt brothers are so much like the Kelsey brothers for me in the sense
but they're better.
in the sense that I loved JJ and I loved Jason. I hate TJ and I hate Travis. But as soon as they both retire, then I'll enjoy them as human beings. As soon as they are not wreaking havoc on my team, I'll enjoy them both. Because as much as it pains me to say, I like Travis Kelce. He seems like a pretty genuine dude. He's pretty funny. I watch their podcast from time to time. And as soon as he's not on the Chiefs and he's just doing his own thing, I'll like him so much more. I'll feel more comfortable admitting that I like him. But same exact thing
that's
with
my
TJ.
piece. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time because I'm gonna agree with that one.
Yeah,
so.
of course. Offensive player of the year. Saquon obviously got the W. Where do you stand on it?
Bastard. Had to go out there and get more yards than Terrell Davis in a season. TD was 1 and 2. Bastard. No, deserved. I mean, I don't hate Saquon. I think my cat has some feelings about Saquon being an Eagle, being a Giant. I like Saquon. So I have no quorums. I like that he didn't go for the 2,000 yards in the season because that shows that he cares. There's a little sideline interview where he was asked, "Hey, you want to go?" And he's like, "No, let them guys go out there." Yep. So I like Saquon. I like that one. No quorums.
I will say the more I learn about Saquon, the more I like him. It seems like, especially after this Super Bowl run, there was a lot of interviews with him, a lot of videos of him and his family, things like that. He's got to be one of the most likable players in the NFL. Like you said, I saw that same little sideline thing where they were like, "Hey, you're 10 yards away from this, thing or whatever. Do you want to go back?" And he said, "No, let the young guys eat. Let them go out there."
Yeah, let them eat. I like that.
And that's true leadership. However, I'm going to say no. Jamar fucking Chase, dude. Triple Crown winner. Are you kidding me? Like, how do you lead the NFL in receptions, touchdown catches, yards? You do everything better than every wide receiver in the NFL combined, and you get stiffed. Great. Saquon had a 2,000-yard season. He got a Super Bowl. He doesn't deserve the fucking offensive player of the year. Give it to my boy Jamar. I've never seen someone deserve offensive player of the year more than Jamar Chase. It's just, it blows my mind. And I mean, I can't pull it up right now off rip because I don't have the stats, but the year Cooper Kupp won Triple Crown, was he not offensive player of the year?
I don't know.
I'll have to look it up. And I can't say I know for sure on that, but assuming he did, I mean, come on. He did everything Cooper Kupp did better on a team that was worse. So,
2021 Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp offensive player of the year.
Yep, there you go. So
We
I
just talked
think
about Sterling Sharp, man. He was a Triple Crown winner, didn't win Player of the Year that year.
he's in the Hall of Fame, so he's good.
That's in the Hall of Fame.
He's in the Hall of
There
Fame.
you go.
Nope. Jamar deserved it over Saquon. That is and 100% biased. 100% biased. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh no, it's not like it's because I'm a Bengals fan. No, it totally is. I will retract on what I said. Saquon absolutely deserved it. Had himself a spectacular season. But in my heart of hearts, I still think Jamar deserved it more. But,
Yeah, let that passion out. I mean, you are who you are.
always.
And I will point out to you, just as my angst to why Bo Nix wasn't closer or even second place was because of the shiny.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels had that nice Hail Mary. Saquon Barkley had that unbelievable jump backwards hurdle.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
If you flip it, if Jamar had some backwards hurdle or Odell type catch, and Saquon didn't, and they have the same stats, it goes to Jamar.
Yeah. Yeah. MVP. Obviously Josh Allen won. 3,731 yards, 28 touchdowns to 6 INTs, another 531, and 12 touchdowns on the ground. Pretty great quarterback season. I'm going to let you talk first because you already know where I'm going with this.
Oh, I do. Man, what a crazy NFL MVP in my opinion. So when we break this down, looking at the voting, it was 383 to 362.
Lamar in second.
Lamar in second. I we of course we're gonna check our bias as much as possible, but we wouldn't be who we are, and that's why you're gonna let me go first. You're gonna hate what I have to say though. I love Josh Allen. Josh Allen was supposed to be a Bronco. John Elway wanted to draft him. John Elway made a poor decision. I love John Elway. I'm not going to get on that tangent. He was a great GM. He brought us another Super Bowl. I'm going to cut that out real quick. I'm sure we'll get to that in another future episode at some point. But man, it's hard to look at the stats in comparison to Lamar and Josh Allen and not lean towards Lamar Jackson. It, the and I think to me what separates Josh Allen from Lamar Jackson is just Lamar Jackson's raw athleticism. Not that I'm not saying that Josh Allen is not athletic, because he is. We're talking about number 1 and number 2. But when you look at the rushing between Lamar and Josh Allen, it's crazy the difference in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. If I just pull up the 2024 stats between the two, don't make me sign into that. 915 yards for Lamar, 531 for Josh Allen. And I know we're talking quarterbacks, but I mean, even if we look at their quarterback stats, 28 touchdowns to 41 to Lamar, 6 interceptions for Josh Allen, 4 to Lamar. I mean, without even getting into this, Lamar had better stats in every statistical category, every single one of them. So it's just weird to me that Lamar won it in other seasons where he shouldn't have, but he doesn't win it here when he should have.
I think that pretty much comes down to the fact that Josh Allen beat him in the playoffs, because all of the honors happened after that. My guess is that comes down to Josh Allen winning in the playoff game. But if you want to talk,
I watched that game with some friends, by the way, and I literally said, whoever wins this game wins
MVP,
the X Player of the Year. But is this a regular season award or is this a season award? You hear everybody talk about it. Oh, this is a regular season award. This is most valuable player of the NFL season, the most comeback player of the NFL season. So it shouldn't matter who beat who.
Yeah,
I don't disagree, right? And I think if it was that close, sure, Josh Allen should win it because he beat him in the playoffs. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But what is it, right?
Well,
let her rip.
You want to talk about quarterback stats, do you? 4,918 yards, just shy of a 5,000-yard season. That's first in the NFL. 43 touchdowns through the air. That is first in the NFL. A passer rating of 108.5 for the season. Who could I be talking about, Shawn?
I don't know.
Joe fucking Burrow. Are you kidding me? MVP means most valuable player. Nobody in the fucking world was more valuable to their team than Joe Burrow. When have you ever seen a team be 4-8 at week 13 and by week 18 they're still in the fucking playoff hunt? Wins are not a quarterback stat. Plain and simple. Wins are a team stat, and our team fucking sucked. You put Josh Allen on the Bengals, they get 5-6 wins. You put Lamar Jackson on the Bengals, you get 5-6 wins. No one else in the NFL can do what Joe Burrow did on that team that he had. To have a defense so fucking lackluster and so bad, and to still come out with a winning record, to still keep his team in playoff contention to the very last fucking second, no one deserved it more than Joe Burrow. It's not even a competition. Like I said, you want to talk about stats? First in most categories. Oh, we're talking about ground game now. Oh, okay. Well, MVP, historically a quarterback award. I didn't realize we were, going to bring Lamar B into this fucking conversation. These quarterback dual threats. Like, I get it. That's the future. You got to have a good ground game too. But you watch Joe Burrow in the pocket, and for having the fucking worst offensive line I've ever seen, that dude gets away from so much shit. They call, Pat Mahomes, he's the magician. You can't sack him. Have you fucking seen Joe Burrow? Dude's pocket presence is unmatched. His accuracy is unmatched. I mean, it's so painful. And you know what? He had 2 rushing touchdowns this year. He had 2, and one of them was like a 57-yarder. So, he can move too if he absolutely needs to. But yeah, the biggest thing that sets Joe Burrow apart from the rest of the guys that were in the MVP talks was wins. And wins are not a quarterback stat.
What's also one of those rushing touchdowns was against Denver, wasn't it? I think so, because he did the fucking gritty against the Broncos. I wanted to punch a hole through my TV. That pissed me off.
He did, yes, that did happen. Oh, that was the cleanest gritty too. The first one he's ever hit, it was so clean, so good. That was MVP worthy right there. That was his MVP moment.
I'll agree with you, and not on the gritty, but I'll agree with you in your argument about MVP, because when you look at the Bills, they had James Cook, who was an elite top 10 running back in the NFL. Who did the Ravens have? King fucking Henry as their running back. So, and who did y'all have?
Chase Brown, who did pretty well, given that this is only his second year. He had a pretty decent season.
He's no James Cook. Himself. Come on. He's no Derrick Henry.
He will never be Derrick Henry.
So, I mean, you got players like that are going to help your team. You don't got anybody like that in
at least on
Cincinnati.
The ground game. I will say we are so lucky to have the receiving core that we have. Obviously, Jamar and T. Joe Burrow couldn't do what he does without Jamar or T. I think you put Joe Burrow on just about any other squad, he's still putting up numbers pretty close to this because he's fucking good. But you can't credit all of that to Joe Burrow. You see how many times he hits Jamar Chase on a fucking 4-yard out route, and then Jamar Chase hits a spin and takes it 60 yards to the house. That's 64 yards for Joe Burrow when he threw it 4. So obviously you can't. It's all with a grain of salt. You can't do what you do without the players that you have surrounding you. But again, being the stat nerd that I am, and also understanding human language and realizing MVP means most valuable player. Absolutely no player in the NFL was more valuable to their franchise than Joe Burrow. And that's plain and simple.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be your tangent.
You know what? Yeah. I've been preparing for it all week. I'm so fucking ready because no one else around me cares. So I can't just vent my frustrations about how much he deserved it because my wife will just be like, who, what? So I've been holding it in for this moment.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
won't go off any further. I just want to talk about one more topic, and that's Coach of the Year. Sean Payton was in the running, along with Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn, Andy Reid, and winner Kevin O'Connell. Where do you stand on that?
I'm gonna give Coach D, I could care less if I'm being transparent. It just goes to the biggest turnaround. And you can't deny the turnaround the Vikings had. I mean, it was an unbelievable one, especially given everybody looking at that team at the start of last year and writing them off. JG McCarthy was supposed to be the next guy, and it was going to be a rebuild year. And I can't, I don't have a disagreement with who won. However, let's break it down. That O'Connell 361, Dan Campbell 283. Andy Reid 119. Get out of here. Commanders Dan Quinn 85 and Sean Payton 71.
How much do
You
you
grief
believe?
us enough in the Hall of Fame. The Bronco players don't have great representation, although we're I think tied with 5 teams with 3, then a couple teams with 4, and then 5. Well, one of the most winning franchises in the NFL, and we have low representation. I have my piece. I feel better. Kind of same to you. Nobody really cares. Got a lot of Bronco fan friends. We live in Colorado, so that's gonna happen. But I don't talk too much football with people because people have weird opinions. You don't. That's why this is gonna work so great. I had said my piece about Mike Shanahan, but 71. Now maybe he would have gotten a coach of the year up maybe in second or third if he believed in Bo Nix in our game to go for 2 against the Bengals. And we won that. We secure a play spot then.
Mm,
Maybe that would have been, because he made some weird coaching decisions. A lot of my friends who are Bronco fans don't like Sean Payton. I love him. I don't know why you'd hate him to the extent where some of my friends do hate him, but that's my only quorum. You can give us last at 71. And why is Andy Reid on there? Get the fuck out of here, buddy.
Andy
You're
Reid's on
sure
there
you're
because
great.
they're fucking 15-2. That's why he's on
Weird with Patrick Mahomes, the greatest
there.
quarterback to bless this planet. Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
uh,
Anyway, that's
I
my only quorum.
I'm with
That's
you
my only
on that.
quorum.
I'm with you. Andy Reid should not have really been on there. I mean, thankfully, as was evident in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs were the most fraudulent 15-win team we've ever seen. Um, Dan Campbell and Dan Quinn, very, very similar in their play styles. They've got fucking nuts made of steel. Um, and I think they deserve to be up there in those talks. But at the end of the day, Kevin O'Connell absolutely was deserved to be
Yeah.
the winner. Um,
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, what was supposed to be a rebuild year, get your young guy out there, get him some reps. It's going to be a tough season, but do what you can. To have him get hurt, your entire plan goes out the window, and now you've got to try to make do with Sam Darnold, and you push a 14-win season. They became the first team ever to get 14 wins and not win their division. Crazy. Kevin O'Connell is a offensive mastermind. Absolutely deserved, I believe, as well. Funny, we talk about Minnesota a lot the last 2 videos for us both
Yeah.
being pretty neutral on the Vikings. But yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely Kevin O'Connell deserved for sure.
Yeah, the biggest praise our Viking fans have is back in '98 when they almost beat the Falcons to go to the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos, but y'all didn't make it. So sorry. Maybe make a
Bummer.
field goal next time. Yeah,
Ooh,
sucks to suck.
maybe don't go wide right, huh?
Yeah.
Them and Buffalo both. Okay, on to something a little more fun. Something that won't get us nearly, or me, nearly as worked up. Let's talk about some of the best and worst plays from the NFL as a whole and from our teams. Go ahead and start us off. Let's start with the Broncos. What was your favorite play from the Broncos this year?
Yeah, I think I'll just go through them pretty quick. So I mean, our best play, in my opinion, was against your Bengals. The end of the game, Bo Nix running off to the right, throwing it up. Marvin Mims double coverage goes up and grabs it. I mean, that was a him moment for Bo Nix, and let's say Marvin Mims. He blossomed at the end of the year. Bo Nix and his poise, his NFL awareness, his football IQ to just be running down there saying, let's go for 2 because we need to end this game right now. We didn't. Not going to go into there. But that was my best play of the year. The moment, I mean, we talked throughout the whole game. But man, that was a moment in I think the entire year that we're gonna look back on and think, man, that was a good moment for us. That's my play of the year. My worst play is that damn blocked field goal against the Chiefs, man. I remember sitting upstairs watching it and just falling in just utter defeat. Like, are you kidding me? Block the fucking field goal. Seriously? And our like third string tight end was paid by the NFL. I'm just gonna go ahead and point that out. Like, oh, he's had a hole in the dumbass NFL. Oh, he's had a hole in there, and man, they really exploited that. And fuck you, and fuck the Chiefs. Okay, no, that was the worst play. I remember just falling in defeat. I went right up into this room, and I was here the rest of the day. Not Cat knows enough, especially against the Chiefs. Especially when we have like a hopeful year. Like that was a point where we're like, man, we could be good. Bonex is starting to like turn. And a block field goal? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh,
Crazy how many
I'm
times
still
that
upset.
happened this year too. Crazy how many games were won or lost on a blocked field goal. It happened like 3 or 4 times this year. It's something that you
Yeah.
don't see really ever, and then to happen that many times in one season, pretty crazy.
Mm,
Um,
yeah. But
I'm
those are
gonna
mine, just real quick. So, what do you think about the Bengals?
I'm gonna go backwards order. I'm gonna start with my worst play for the Bengals. My worst play for the Bengals this year was giving up a touchdown with 8 seconds left with Mims at double covered. That no play summarized our season more than that one. No play summarized how horrible our defense has been than that one. You had 8 seconds left to hold the game down, and all you had to do was not give up a touchdown. You double covered Mims, 2 men directly on him. Neither of them can stop it, and he comes down with it. Nothing shows more of what our season was than that play right there. Granted,
It was a good ball.
it was a fantastic throw, but there was a guy behind him and there was a guy in front of him. There was 4 hands to 2. It should have so easily gone and game over, and then it's it. But no, Mims comes down with it, and like I said, nothing summarized our season more than that play. Our best play of the year wasn't really in terms of pivotalness or anything like that. Cam Taylor-Britt's diving one-handed interception versus the Chiefs in week 2. That was a fucking Sports Center top 10 play if I've ever seen one. Dude damn near Odell Beckham'd that interception. To have it come off Mahomes is even better. I'm not big on players out here talking smack, but Cam Taylor-Britt was talking about Xavier Worthy, saying he's just a streak merchant. He can't run routes. All he can do is run real fast. And I get scared when shit like that happens because that's just bulletin board material, as they call it. So the fact that he was guarding Worthy when it happened, Worthy couldn't get past him, and then CTB comes down with that beautiful one-handed interception. That was a pretty nice moment.
A good thing a pass interference ruined that game for y'all, right?
Next week's episode, should we kill the refs? NFL best and worst plays. I want to throw in an honorable mention for worst, and that was Kenny Pickett throwing himself and not the ball. I don't know if you've seen that clip. Dude dropped back, tried to pump fake, and just threw his whole body and not the ball. That is something that you will only see from Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, got to take live snaps in the Super Bowl because they were beating the Chiefs so fucking bad. W.
Yeah.
But best play in the NFL for me is a tie. I think no one is going to talk about the 2024 NFL season without mentioning Saquon's backwards hurdle.
First hurdle.
I mean, it's one of the craziest freak athleticism moments I've ever seen in my life. You'll probably never see a play like that ever again. Super, super incredible. But tied with it, another moment we've also talked about earlier was the Commanders' Hail Mary. Which is funny because the Broncos did that last season versus the Commanders. Couldn't quite capitalize on the 2-point conversion. But it's
There's
still
a PI there that was missed, but hey, let's kill the refs.
It's always so exciting to see teams be 50, 60 yards away. There's 4 seconds left on the clock, and you say, fuck it, gotta huck it and hope for the best. And when the best actually happens, that's always an electric moment, especially when it happens at home. To a franchise like the Commanders, who, like we've said, has been struggling for so long. That was absolutely an electric moment that I think really set the tone for the rest of their year.
Yeah. Momentum building for sure.
And if
Yeah.
we're going to talk about momentum building or momentum destroying, my worst play of the year in the NFL was right on the other side of that play. Tyreek Stevenson, taunting Commanders fan out there, talking his shit, letting his nuts hang, and then he was the one that tipped the ball into the air for the loss. The Bears lost 5 in a row after that. Caleb Williams couldn't. I mean, that was, you saw at the end of that too. Caleb Williams just threw his helmet and walked away. I mean, that, you want to talk about a momentum destroyer? Yeah, that to taunt the fans when you're at an away stadium talking your shit, and then to be the reason that Hail Mary happened. I mean, man, I can't think of something much worse.
We give my my worst play is that one too. That's funny. I was both our worst plays.
Yeah.
We give our buddy some big dog shit about his GG at the end of games before the games are over. Shout out to Digital Bro Mad. Check him out on TikTok, Instagram. He travels and does a bunch of why you can get more for your money in different locations than you can in the US. So big shout out to you. But you're an idiot when you do GG before our games are over, because we lose like 90% of those games. That's what he did. He thought they won some stupid ass. Oh, man. Yeah, I can't imagine how that felt. What a dumbass. So yeah, our worst play is the same, but you know what? My best play is gonna go to Josh Allen. I forget what week it was, but he throws the ball, it gets batted up, he catches it, and he scores a touchdown.
No, so that it was a screen to Cook, I think, his running back. No, it was a screen to Amari Cooper, because he had just signed with the Bills at the time. And Cooper got sort of wrapped up, and Josh Allen came behind. Yeah, he just fucking hucks it to Josh Allen, who then dies. Yeah, I forgot about that play. That was a phenomenal.
I apparently did too.
I mean, that was so heads up though for Josh Allen to be smart enough to run and say, "Hey, lateral it back," and that was so smart of Amari Cooper to be aware enough while in the middle of being tackled to say, "Here you go."
There you go.
That was that. I forgot about that play. That was a phenomenal play.
And that is probably a little shiny crown that gave, maybe potentially Josh Allen MVP over Lamar, as well as the playoff win. But that's my best and worst. Crazy.
Yeah.
I of course, you can't deny the Saquon play, but I was going off the assumption that was going to be your play of the year, and I wanted to give it some diversity. So you can't deny that.
Yeah.
Can't deny that.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Well, we'll rapid fire these last few kind of best and worst games. I think we're probably in agreement that the worst game, actually, we're probably in agreement on both of these. Worst game of the year had to be the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is supposed to be the most entertaining, the two juggernauts, the teams that fought all season to make it to this point. And while I'm super happy at the outcome of the Super Bowl, you would have liked it to be a little bit more exciting. The Eagles to come out and absolutely trounce them. Like I said, nothing makes me happier. But it's supposed to be the last game of the season. There's supposed to be all this tension, all this drama, whatever else. And for the Eagles just to come out and absolutely just shit whip them, it was a pretty boring Super Bowl just to watch the Eagles walk all over them. So no matter how much I enjoyed it in terms of an actual entertainment factor, it was a really boring game.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to watch it, but I kept it on my phone just to see what it was going to be like. And I ended up keeping it on my phone the whole time, just watching it and just enjoying it. And I'm sure we'll get to it at a different point. I'm not going to belabor it here, but Mahomes sucked in that Super Bowl. And his stat line at the end is fraudulent because of the garbage time. So that is absolutely my worst game. And I'll give you my best game. I know we have our best and worst for our teams that we're going to talk about potentially if we have the time, but you can't deny how good that Broncos game was against the Bengals. I know that's some bias, so I'm going to throw out that is my game of the year. It will be my game of the last couple of seasons, because the Broncos and even you guys have more recent Super Bowl. Maybe not wins, but more Super Bowl presence than we've had in the last couple of years. You guys have at least made it in the last 5 years, 6 years. But my best game will actually go week 1, the first game of the year. The Ravens and Chiefs, and that just kind of kicked off the Chiefs' fraudulent season as well. Missing that by what
A toe.
like a spike of
Yeah.
the cleat, and for the sheets go, man, he should have wore white cleats. Huh? Oh my god, no, no. She's had the most fraudulent season. My worst game is the Super Bowl as well. Glad they lost. My God, don't let them be the three-peat. No, they didn't deserve it.
Uh, I mean, I think if you are a fan of your team, you're going to have a different best game. But I think if you're just a fan of football, there's absolutely no denying that the Bengals Broncos game was the most entertaining game of the year. From an entertainment
Almost a
standpoint,
tie.
it was almost a tie.
Yeah.
The back and forth nature of it, the last second throw from Bo Nix, the heroics from Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. I mean, that was everything you want in a football game, to the
Yeah.
point where I even saw memes going around right after that was like, nobody, Bengals and Broncos on a random Saturday night. Absolute fucking cinema.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like I said, from an entertainment standpoint and as a football fan standpoint, there's no denying that that was the best game of the year.
Yeah.
Um,
Check us out. For those of you watching, we're gonna go this year to the Broncos Bengals game. It's gonna be a real exciting Sunday
I'm
episode for
so
us to
excited.
talk through that. We'll have to have a little side bet where the loser has to wear a jersey of the team for the after that game for those who lose. So that'll be hard for
Oh,
both of
on the
us. That'll kill.
podcast?
Yeah, on the podcast. That'll
Oh.
kill us both deep in our souls. So we might have to talk about that offline. But
Oh, man.
that was not just a coming out party for the Broncos, but it was a showcase of Joe Burrow. And people are like, "Oh, it's a new rivalry between Broncos and Bengals." I wouldn't go that far. Maybe we'll see this year how it goes. Both Joe and Bo have plenty of time left in the NFL, but yeah,
I
that
think in
that
terms
game
of
was
like
cinema.
I think in terms of like rivalry aspect, it's going to be like the Bills and the Bengals. They're not actual rivals. It's like a friendly rivalry. Like everyone out there respects each other. The Broncos and the Raiders, that's a rivalry. The
Ugh.
Bengals and the Steelers, that's a rivalry. But there's kind of growing rivalries in the NFL where it's a more respect-based rivalry, and that would be like the Bengals and Bills or the
Yeah.
Bengals and Broncos. I think that's
Potentially, it's still too soon. Let's see how the Broncos do next
I
year.
mean,
But Broncos
even
and Bills Broncos and Bengals have always had crazy games. You remember
it's
we were in high school and I was a real bag of
don't you
dicks to you back
fucking
then.
don't you
The
fucking do
Brandon
it.
Stokely, I met Brandon Stokely. I talked to him about that. He was like, "Man, I just looked up and the ball was right there, and we ran it down." And we got that score on y'all. So we've always had really good games, Broncos and Bengals. This was another one that's gonna go up there for us, but we're really looking forward to going to that game with you this year. That'll be a good time.
I'm so excited, man. It's going to be a good one. I got one last thing to wrap us up on. Most surprising and most disappointing teams this year.
Yeah. I'll kick it off with most disappointing. I think we're going to be pretty similar potentially on the New York Jets. I mean, you want to look, what was it, maybe earlier part of the season? Aaron Rodgers is coming back. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and Devontae Adams just kind of peeks up, and they're like, "Oh, the boys are back together. The Jets are going to have an unbelievable offense." It was unbelievable in the sense that they sucked. They were
Yeah.
trash. They were terrible. It goes to what we talked about with Aaron Rodgers and potentially retiring. I mean, the Jets were trash. They sucked. Their New York is passionate. I have no corns with the Jets, so I feel bad to an extent. I will point out when y'all Jets fans came to Denver and you guys were doing your little Jets chants, we really enjoyed when we beat y'all, and y'all did JETS and we yelled suck, 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 because that's what y'all did this year. Y'all sucked. So sorry. You need another quarterback, guys. Aaron Rodgers ain't it. He's too old and he's too fragile. He's got too much of an ego. Yeah.
Most disappointing for me, honorable mention, Cowboys. Cowboys are sort of the regular season juggernauts. You always see them at 12 or 13 wins and then lose in the wild card or the divisional. Didn't even get that far this year. A lot of injuries that plagued them, a lot of uncertainty at head coach. As we talked about last episode, Jerry Jones just having his hand too much in the mix when it doesn't need to be. But yeah, I think no matter what, where you stand as an NFL fan, Cowboys fan or not, you sort of expect the Cowboys to have 10 or 11 wins and make a pretty easy push into the playoffs. So to not see that was pretty surprising. But I think, the bias coming out pretty
Here we
easily.
go.
The most disappointing team this year was the Bengals. To be a team that is Super Bowl hopefuls because of their Super Bowl trip and then the AFC Championship game in the following year. Joe Burrow gets hurt the year after that, so these years kind of, kind of a wash. Joe Burrow comes back, he's healthy, he's playing like a fucking madman, and to finish 9-8 and miss the playoffs, I think not a whole lot of teams suffered quite like that this year. Either you were a playoff hopeful and you made it to the playoffs, or you were like, this is a rebuild year and, we pick up a couple wins here and there, and that's sort of where you were at. I don't think any team quite like the Bengals had as much momentum and as much favor, and as many people thinking that they were going to be like, oh, this is the team that could take down the Chiefs three-peat, to then not make the playoffs. Heartbreaking. But I won't dwell too much on that because, there's always next season. So, most surprising for me, honorable mention, Broncos. That's, you get a rookie quarterback, especially coming off when you had Russell Wilson, who, I know where you stand on him, but statistically it was a great quarterback in Seattle. You expect him to come into Denver and continue being great. Obviously wasn't. You cut him. You have all this dead cap. You have no money to make moves, get players. You got this rookie quarterback who seemed like a reach at the time in the draft, to then come in and lay it down the way he did and get you guys into the playoffs. Very, very surprising. But I think most surprising for me has got to be the Commanders. You don't expect a rookie quarterback to come in and make the difference. You hope, when you spend a high draft pick on someone like that, you hope that he's the difference maker. You hope that he's going to come in and he's going to turn the culture around. He's going to make this team a winning team. But hopes and reality are very, very different. And the fact that Jaden Daniels came in, did what he did, took them all the way to the NFC Championship game. Granted, the Eagles smacked him around pretty good. He still put up pretty decent numbers. And then to win, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Even, at some point in the season, he was in like MVP talks, very, very reminiscent of what CJ Stroud did in Houston last year. I think no-brainer Commanders were the most surprising team for me this year.
No-brainer, baby. I got no honorable mentions. We got none, okay? Most dead space. All these pro analysts saying how bad Bo Nix was, giving us D grades in the draft, coming out and saying we're going to be 4-12. We were called at one point the worst roster in the NFL. Even heard it from you, praising and giving the Commanders did it right this time more than you can make the same argument for Denver. Yeah. And they're, I'm really hoping that we see some consistency in Bo Nix. People start putting a little bit more respect. One of my best friends on this planet, Bo, he's a gigantic 49ers fan, and he lived through it with Brock Purdy. And gave him some crap about it too. But I'm living it now, man. Nobody wants to put any respect behind Bo Nix's name. So, we got a top 15 draft space or cap space this offseason. Got some hopes in landing some good pieces around Bo Nix. I got no honorable mentions. My biggest surprise is Denver, especially the way we started. We got lost to the Chiefs at 5-5 with that blocked field goal. I had no hope. I was down in the gutter. It was hard, but we turned around first time since that man over there, Peyton Manning, came out in Denver and got us to a playoffs, and of course won the Super Bowl. But to see where we are with Bo Nix, 100% bias, that is my biggest surprise.
All right, well, I think that just about does it for us on time. Next week, I think we'll look into maybe a 2025 predictions, maybe things that we're looking at for NFL honors, things like that. How we think things are going to go, players are going to go, teams are going to go, things like that. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. You can find us on X. You can find us on TikTok. We're still working on getting Spotify, but we're the Turbo Omaha podcast on all of it. Other than that, we will see you guys next week.
See y'all.